are back for another Brave Central podcast. A reminder, share, review, like, all of that stuff for this podcast. We're trying to make it the best podcast out there, and we know we will. We need your help to do that. Barrett, Sallee, and Chris Dimino with you. Breaking down the Atlanta Braves, a disappointing 3-game setup in Pittsburgh. I think punctuated by Sunday night's anemic offensive performance. It's just every single day, it seems like there's something frustrating, something wrong with this team. And for the last week, Chris, even at home in the Red Series, which they won, it's the offense just can't get going. I don't know what the problem is, but it can't last if the Braves are going to be World Series contenders.
Yeah, getting a 4 is a chore. That's not conducive to winning bigger in baseball. That's not what 90 and 95 win teams do. They can look. There are nights where the power goes out. There are nights where a couple of days in a row you just go runners in scoring position are bad. But you got heart of the lineup guys who are just terrible right now. Mm-hmm. And the ability or inability, I was going to say the ability to keep an inning going just doesn't exist. The inability to actually put across runs when given an opportunity, as few as they've been, close to non-existent. And you had a team that had lost 7 games in a row. Now, I don't want to bring this up to anybody, but I will. Washington's coming in losing 5 in a row. So anybody, again, who wants to play here's the good news. Pittsburgh's a mess. They've lost 7 in a row and just fired their manager. Well, Washington's lost 5 in a row. What does it mean for a 4-game series? I don't know. You tell me. Because, again, we're dealing in that territory where I have standings here, and I don't want to do this again. But who are the Braves? I can give you the list of the names of the teams that the Braves are basically same as. And it's not impressive. It's not impressive. And the teams that are better, some of them, quite honestly, aren't supposed to be better. Now, I don't deal in let's declare it on March 1st as everybody's in camp and say this is how the season's going to go. I don't believe in that at all. But I do know there were certain things that were supposed to be a little bit more of a given. And the Atlanta Braves were not supposed to be as bad as some of the teams that they're as bad as. And some of the teams that are better than the Braves this year, see the Tigers and a few others, see the Cubs. That's also part of the equation that we don't talk about. I say it all the time with the Falcons because it's sort of just 17 games and football's conducive to this. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. And in the NFL, whether it's in a division here, well, you got to catch Tampa. But what's Carolina doing right behind you? What's New Orleans doing behind you? Did you do enough to not only catch Tampa, but did you stave them off? Well, the Braves are in that category now. It seems crazy for a 162-game season to talk about that, but we're now going to be rooting for that guy not to be good, which is sort of really not what we've had to do around here very often in the last handful plus of years. It's been, we'll go to the playoffs on our own accord, then we'll find out what we do. This year, there might actually be some help needed to actually play October baseball this year.
Especially if they continue to play like they have. And one guy in particular, it always seems to find him. That at-bat, that crucial at-bat always seems to find him, and that is Ozzie Albies. He's won for his last 23, and it hasn't been much better beyond that number either. To me, it's either strikeout, fly ball, or ground out. I don't know which one it's going to be, but Ozzie has not been anywhere close to what he's supposed to be, and he's not supposed to be a superstar. He's not supposed to hit you 50 home runs. I think the expectation is 20, 25, and have a 270 batting average. That's not that much to ask from a guy who has been beaten up. I think we know that. His arm, his wrist, that's a problem. And, we surmised on the Ford Leadoff show one time that maybe he needs to drop an ounce on the bat. He's got the heaviest bat on the team. Maybe he's got to try something different because this is not working. And it's not just one of those things where, okay, it's just a slump. No. It's been pretty consistent over 2 months that his bat is just not there. And when you throw him in the middle of the lineup, and Snit had him, 6th yesterday, you're expecting him to drive in runs. You're expecting him to sort of be the guy who shifts the bus into drive, so to speak, not the catalyst, because the catalyst is somebody at the top of the order. He's supposed to be the guy that finishes it off. He's supposed to kick it into high gear, and he's just not doing that. I don't know what the problem is. I don't know what the solution is, but whatever the solution is, Ozzie needs to at least try to find it. And it doesn't seem like he is.
So I looked at, and it only took one break, industry term, a few minutes. I said, let me just look at some of the numbers. His line drive rate, fly ball rate, ground ball rate. And I had said that if you have warning track power now, and that's what happens to guys. Naturally, in the old days, that's what happened. You'd see Gary Carter, all of a sudden he's got warning track power, and it's really hard to get your legs back at a certain point in a certain age. Now, Ozzie's younger than that, but it looks to me like he's got to start thinking ground ball hard contact. His hard contact is down. His line drives are down. I think the pop-up stuff, which it just feels like there's a lot of them, certainly lazy fly balls. The reason I brought up the bat thing is I wonder if he's just got to whip it a little bit more and really, look, I would have laid down a couple of bunts. If I'm 1 for 23 and I'm him and I'm on the left-hand side, throw it down a couple of times. Try to actually get yourself going and make somebody make a play on you. I'm a little bit surprised that hasn't happened. You said he's not a superstar, but I'll tell you what he's supposed to be. He's supposed to be one of the top 5 second basemen in baseball, and he's certainly not that. He's not playing anything close to an all-star caliber. And when you look at the 3,100 years, and he did have 2 of them, I think it was 21 and 23, I looked at his line drive numbers. You look at if he's hitting the ball out as opposed to now, we had a little bit more pop. So he's down, no doubt about it. And there are other things about this team. The idea that he hit 6th was not good. I'll go now a step further. Give him a day off, maybe 2.
Yeah.
And throw Nick Allen. Figure out what it is you need to do. You want to play Eli White at shortstop? Play Eli White at shortstop for a couple of games. Throw Nick Allen at second base, and maybe just do that because it doesn't feel like he's hitting his way out of this or playing his way out of this. I would have thought at some point, points, let me make that correction, points, plural, he would have laid down a couple of bunts or at least attempted to because then at least you're doing something with your legs. That's my next part. 4 against Washington. Why is he any different than anybody else when you go, that guy needs a blow. That guy needs to sit. Maybe sitting watching a game wakes him up a little bit. I don't know if that's a real thing or not. Maybe it's time for 2 days off. You don't get a day off this week, so you'd have to literally sit him for 2. I'm sitting him for 1. That's the first thing I'm doing. Then everything else is, well, Washington doesn't do this well, and Washington doesn't do that well. I don't want the story to be that Mike Soroka is going to be the starting pitcher on Tuesday. Now, Soroka's had a couple of bumpy innings. He's 0-2 with a 7. It doesn't look great. I'm happy he's back. I'm really rooting for him every day of the year except for Tuesday now. And I don't even mind if he pitches well Tuesday as long as the Braves find a way to win. But this general malaise of offense for multiple innings to start a game has just gotten to the point of ridiculous. I don't know what it is, and I'm not telling you there's a jump start. This is not one of those where you get the paddles and you go hit it, boom, and all of a sudden, oh, the body's alive. I don't feel that way. It's not a fun game to watch, probably not a fun game to play. And the one-run games thing, you're finally under 500. I said it yesterday. Yeah. They played 16. Now they played 17 one-run games. Nobody in baseball has played more one-run games than the Braves. Now, if you want to tell me, oh, that's good, that'll sharpen you up a little bit, it's May. None of that's going to carry over. This just means you don't have a capability to beat anybody up. This just means you don't have a capability to do anything in that 10-2 range, 10-3 range right now, and that's part of your problem. That's why you sit where you do. And I think everybody has finally woken up to the idea that talking about 500 was a waste of time. It was just dumb. It was a storyline. I tried to tell everybody 10 days ago, cut it out, because if you get to 500, you lose your next game, you're back under 500. What am I going to do? I'm going to start telling that story all over again? Mm-hmm. This team is what it is. They got 4 against Washington. They play 17 games in a row. At the end of that, you'll look up and you'll go, oh, we're getting closer to June 1st where it's supposed to matter.
Speaking of offensive malaise, Alex Verdugo's in that spot too, and he absolutely deserves criticism. My pushback to that criticism would be, well, he's not supposed to be here. But he is there, and he is a professional hitter. He has had success in this league. He's actually had success as a leadoff hitter in this league prior to coming to Atlanta. That has to change, too. I don't know if you consider moving him out of that leadoff spot now because maybe Eli White deserves a chance. Nick Allen's been hitting well. Maybe he deserves a chance. I don't know what the solution is to that, but Alex Verdugo deserves some criticism too, because if the top of the order is going to have success, and it has in the past, you need some people on base. You need somebody to set the table. And Verdugo isn't even doing that anymore.
Well, I had told you, he hit 13 and 14 home runs, and that's Yankee Stadium. And I was wondering if that was part of it. He doesn't look to me like he's got any kind of pop, and I wouldn't mind that. He's the antithesis, though, of a lot of one-hitters now, because those guys there, a lot of them are brought up there to try to make that game 1-0. You know, you just you make a pitcher start his work batter one, and that's the idea that a Schwarber at times and other guys who've hit leadoff, Ronald Acuna, can go deep, and these guys are all around baseball. So Verdugo is not that, but he does need to be on base. He's not a base-stealing threat. So, yeah, maybe it's just miscast. Maybe you rode that for a couple of weeks and it was hot and it worked, but now you got to figure something else out. So is it the structure of the team? Is it the lineup? I'm not huge on lineup. All I know is your best hitters have to hit at the top. There's some guy just wrote an article saying that lineup construction doesn't matter at all. Well, that's ridiculous, because if I can get 100 more at-bats from player A who's better than player B, of course I want more at-bats for player A. What I believe is I don't think managers actually use the lineup to their favor enough. I think the DH thing is a way to maybe switch up who it is you are on a given day, depending upon the catcher. Maybe instead of a guy who's struggling to hit home runs, Marcell Ozuna, I got a guy with speed playing. Now, if Verdugo's not on and Eli White is the guy that I'm looking at, well, then I really don't have that option. Marcell Ozuna is still my best option. But I think that there were certain catchers who don't throw well, pitchers don't hold runners on. If I can change my lineup structure to get more speed in the lineup, and that ain't Marcell Ozuna, and if he's not hitting home runs right now, he's sort of not doing the job that he's there to do, maybe I do that. Maybe I shake it up that way. And I've always been open, because this idea of the old days of this guy hits first, and every day you come in and you just write the names down and go get them, boys. Well, when you see what we're seeing right now offensively, I'm willing to try anything, including sitting Marcell Ozuna for a day. Like, let's get him off his feet for a day. Have him available to pinch hit maybe. Just let's start doing some things that you go, it's not a total shakeup because you're giving up, but something's not working. What do I do to kickstart maybe something that does?
Speaking of not working, Raisel Iglesias is not working as the closer. Look, he had the couple days off. To me, that is a sign that, yes, Snit understands that this is frustrating. Snit understands that something's wrong with him. And, of course, he loses the game yesterday against Pittsburgh. Now, some of that was soft contact. And, okay, I get that. But, you can't start making an excuses for a guy who's been consistently below average as a closer. I think you're going to see Snit stay with him for one or two more games in which he comes in. But at some point, you have to start looking at other options. And when Raisel was down for the last couple of days, it was Daysbell. I do think that Pierce Johnson can be that guy. He's been that guy at Colorado, and he's a little bit unorthodox because he's so curveball happy. But, I mean, he went 26 straight players without allowing a single base runner. That matters. So at some point, you have to start looking at other options for Iglesias. I think maybe midweek, maybe end of week, if things do not improve, you start looking that way. It's not Kimbrel. I think that is, he's up there to be a 6th or 7th guy whenever it is, if he ever does come up from Gwinnett. But Snit clearly likes Daysbell. I think he clearly likes Anel de los Santos. I think obviously his faith in Pierce Johnson is evident. There are guys on this roster out there in this bullpen who I think can serve that role, because outside of Iglesias, this bullpen has been fantastic.
Yeah. So here, your closer's it's not a matchup thing. It doesn't matter lefty, righty, middle of the lineup, bottom of the lineup. Your closer's your closer. He finishes a game. I believe that you could use a closer in the 8th inning if it is the heart of the lineup, and I do want that, and maybe there's a matchup there that makes sense. This guy is a 9th inning guy. That's what he is. And if he's not getting it done in the 9th inning, he can't be a 9th inning guy. And whether it's Hernandez, whether it's Pierce Johnson, which would look funny because it is sort of the opposite of what you see a closer do in a lot of days. I'm just not a fan of you get to keep the job because you were good at it last year. You've gotten the benefit of the doubt. You've actually ridden last year, maybe a little bit longer than you should have. You had a few days off consciously because your manager said you needed it, and then you didn't come in sharp. And Sharp to me would have been this guy throwing bullets. It just would have been, it's my job. I saw Chris Sale a couple of times get so pissed off he threw 98. Now, I don't know if I want that all the time, but I do know that when you bear down, and that's what a closer is supposed to do, you find a way to get a guy out. You get him to chase, you just get swing and miss stuff. Iglesias got a lot of base runners. There's contact. It's not intimidating. You know, I think there are certain guys, and I think he was this guy last year, you don't dig in against him. Or you dig in and it's futile because he's going to actually mess up whatever it is you're thinking about doing. Doesn't happen right now. So if it's the middle of May and you got to change your closer, you change your closer. And again, I'm not talking about throwing guys out. I am just talking about maybe your role shouldn't be this anymore. And that's the leadoff hitter. That's your DH. That's Ozzie hitting sixth. It's all those things that we just talked about where I am open for everything, not because I'm panicked, but because there's water in the boat. I keep saying there's water in the boat. The good thing in baseball is you got buckets. You know, the boat didn't sink. You got water in it. Can I get the water out? Well, this version of this team offensively, back end to the bullpen is not working, and there are lineup problems. So it's time to reassess.
So basically everything.
Well, it's time to reassess. Look, again, they're springing holes, and if a boat literally had marks on it that said offense, hole. If it said closer, hole. Top of the lineup, hole. My second baseman, hole. My DH not hitting home runs, hole. There's water. I mean, you can't deny it. Nobody. This whole idea of people just talking stupidly to me about getting a 500 without actually assessing the problems. Everybody was looking for this thing to just all of a sudden be magical. If you get to 500, all will be better. Why? What were the indications that things were going to be better? This team has flaws. They're flawed. And by the way, everybody is flawed. What do you do to cover it? How many guys do you have to cover it? The fact that Bryce Elder and A.J. Smith-Shawver are throwing as well as they are, and you're not a 500 team, will tell you that you've got problems. So, again, we've discussed it. To me, Ozzie needs a day off. I'd give Ozuna a day off. I would just try to take care of a 5 loss in a row. I think there's 7 games under 500. Look, Bud Black got fired. Shelton got fired before we played him. I don't know what Washington is thinking, if they're in a rebuild or not, but it's going to be embarrassing if you go 2 series in a row with teams that had 7 and 5 game losing streaks and you don't win the series.
Yeah, whether they're in a rebuild or not, I think it's the Braves' job to put them in a rebuild. Hopefully, they start that process this week against a Nationals team that, like you said, has quite a few issues, perhaps even more than the Atlanta Braves. Subscribe, review, like, share, all of that stuff. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you already know how to do the podcast thing, but your neighbor, your friend, your aunt, your uncle, your son, your daughter, they might not. So share this with them. He's Chris Dimino. I'm Barrett Sallee. This has been another episode of Braves Central.